The head of Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority had some harsh words for the president of Tokyo Electric Power Company. He's demanding the company move quickly to prevent contaminated water leaks at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. The nuclear regulator's top official, Katsuhisa Ikeda, summoned Tepco president Naomi Hirose to his office on Friday.
You're not managing the situation at the nuclear plant properly. I'm really concerned. I'm worried that this kind of leakage may occur again.
Ikeda said he wants Tepco to send personnel from other power plants to assist with the work at the Fukushima plant.
I'm terribly sorry for the mistakes we have made. We mishandled the leaking wastewater, and that is affecting the environment.
Hirose said Tepco had recently changed its system for managing contaminated wastewater and that workers had not yet learned to use it. He said he would employ every possible resource to deal with the problem. Tepco workers found that they had pumped too much water into a storage tank, causing it to overflow on Wednesday. They said they detected high levels of radioactive substances in the water that spilled out of the tank.
Blasted the Japanese government for downplaying and covering up the radiation leaks at the Fukushima nuclear power plant. Korea's Minister of Oceans and Fisheries, Yoon Jin-suk, criticized Tokyo for its, quote, immoral acts and said Japan had a duty to inform its neighbors that it was planning to contaminate the ocean by releasing hundreds of tons of radioactive water. Yoon added that Tokyo's, quote, absurd actions had seriously affected Korean fishermen and said she wondered if Seoul had to tolerate such actions under diplomatic protocols. Seoul slapped an import ban on all fishery products from a number of Japanese prefectures, including Fukushima, last month due to possible health risks to Korean consumers.
Tepco pins high hopes on the system to treat radioactive wastewater, but the utility appears far from a solution. NHK World's Noriko Okada has more.
Tepco workers are scrambling to deal with the constant accumulation of contaminated water at Fukushima Daiichi. They have built about 1,000 storage tanks, but those are already 90% full, holding more than 350,000 tons of toxic water. The problem is compounded by rainwater that becomes laced with radioactive materials and seeps into the ground.
We're trying to set up storage tanks to keep pace with the increasing amount of contaminated water, but it's a race against time.
Tepco executives are counting on a system known as ALPS to tackle the accumulation of wastewater. The system was launched on a test basis in March, but it's been dogged by a series of malfunctions that forced workers to shut it down. The latest incident occurred on Friday. Tepco executives hope to make the system fully operational. Their objective is to treat all the wastewater stored at Fukushima Daiichi by the end of March 2015. Experts say the ALPS system is a crucial component of Tepco's strategy to control the situation.
They need to prevent radioactive particles from flowing outside the plant, and at the same time they need to eliminate them from the water. That's what the ALPS system is all about.
The system is capable of removing most radioactive substances, except tritium. Professor Konishi believes the system will be able to significantly reduce the threat of contaminated water.
Tritium is an element that emits relatively low levels of radiation, so its impact on living organisms is more limited than other types of radioactive particles. There are several options to reduce the environmental impact of radiation in Fukushima. None of them offers a perfect solution, but the point will be to choose the option that's most effective in reducing the risks associated with radiation.
One of the biggest challenges for Tepco is to decontaminate water faster than it accumulates. The ALPS system could be the decisive factor to win that battle, but only if the utility manages to operate it at full capacity.
At the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant have resumed testing a filtration system after operations were suspended for half a day. They say a glitch in the control system of a holding tank caused the decontamination system to automatically shut down. Plant managers say an alarm went off on Friday morning, indicating something was wrong with the advanced liquid processing system. The engineers found that the control system of the holding tank was sending out two contradictory signals about whether it could contain more water or not. The engineers plan to suspend operations for 3 days from Saturday to check the system and make any adjustments. An estimated 400 tons of groundwater is seeping into the damaged facilities at the plant every day and is becoming contaminated. The Atomic Energy Agency is about to lend a hand to the workers in Fukushima Prefecture. It's sending a team of experts to offer advice on decontamination in and around the plant. The International Nuclear Watchdog says 16 experts from inside and outside of the agency will be in Japan from October 14th through the 21st. It's the second IAEA team to be sent to support the cleanup in Fukushima since the 2011 accident. Their mission will be to check whether the decontamination work is being carried out properly. They'll also offer recommendations. The cleanup work is falling behind schedule, partly because of a lack of progress in securing space to store contaminated soil from the surrounding communities.
Joining me in Doha is a former nuclear scientist with the Iraqi Atomic Energy Commission, Ahmad Khadouri. Good to have you with us. First of all, help us to understand what is actually happening. Is radiation rising, or are investigators just getting better at recording the real level?
They are getting better. They're using instruments which will detect higher levels of radiation.
So the level hasn't actually changed? Is that what you're saying?
No, there's leakage, which is serious. There's 1,060 tanks, stainless steel water tanks, that are holding the water, which they keep pumping into the damaged reactors and the spent fuel storage pools. So that water, when it comes out, it's radioactive, very radioactive.
Is that, I mean, the question I'm getting at, the water coming out of that particular tank, is the radiation level rising?
Outside the tank, yes. Inside the tank.
So that's a big deal, isn't it?
It is a big, well, it is a problem, a big problem. They have 1,060 of them, and apparently they've been there for 2 years, and some of them have rusted or they are leaking, and that's a lot to look after. But the point is that it's within the plant. It's not outside the plant. It's not, except it's going into the sea, into the Pacific Ocean. And the only people who have suffered are the fishermen, because the levels of contaminated fish last week has risen.
So some of this water is getting out. It's not just confined to the tank and the plant, right?
Yes, it goes into
How much of a threat is it, other than, as you mentioned, to the fish?
Well, as far as the public, they are not accepted. They only eat the fish, and the fishermen cannot catch the fish.
This shows, though, that the problem is not really under control.
It will not be under control for, it's estimated, between 40 and 100 years from now.
That's a long time to wait for.
Yeah, that's what the experts estimate. Now, in the case of Russia, Chernobyl. They simply buried the whole plant, one plant, with cement, like a tomb. And they still have to keep worrying whether anything goes underneath. Here, there is a lot of groundwater coming from the mountains, from the rain. And every day, about 300 tons sweeps under the plants, takes some low-level radioactivity into the sea. And that's difficult to control.
Does that open up the idea of something sitting there for 40 to 100 years? I mean, another major catastrophe could unfold because of another, I don't know, natural disaster, another meltdown?
Well, if there is another earthquake, a serious one, 6, 7, 8, or 9 magnitude, that would rattle all these 1,060 tanks. It would rattle the damaged cores, spent fuel, whose structures have already weakened. Yes, that's a potential very, very serious threat if another strong earthquake hits the same area again.
It looks like foreign help is being invited now to come and deal with this. Will that speed up your very scary timeline there of 40 to 100 years? Well,
the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, has been, they have sort of chastised Tepco for not really giving all for information. And they've been telling them about these tanks for some time. And now, suddenly, the level is raised to 3. And IAEA is not that pleased with this kind of monitoring of the situation. They are going to assist with their experts. But they are facing a huge problem, very difficult problem to solve. And I don't know how much bright new ideas they might throw in. It's yet unknown.
Scary situation. Thanks so much, Ahmed Khadouri.
You're welcome.